Well, earlier this week, 2025 four-star quarterback Ryan Montgomery announcing a top 5. Listen up. The Ohio native says it is between Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, and South Carolina. Let's continue this conversation. It is time now for the Wiltfong Whiparound with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, a long way to go until signing day for that young man. But what did Montgomery have to say about what's next in his process?
Well, Ryan Montgomery was one of the first prospects to emerge nationally from the Midwest in this recruiting class. So even though he's got a long way to the early signing period, he's been going through this process for a couple years now, been able to attend a lot of camps, make a lot of game visits. He put out that top 5, and I think he's doing that in hopes of making his college decision sometime this calendar year. And there's 2 schools that I'm looking very closely at right now for Ryan Montgomery. You're looking at the Florida Gators and the South Carolina Gamecocks, and he has visits set up for both. He's going to get back down to Gainesville when Florida hosts Tennessee in September. His relationship with Coach O'Hara is phenomenal. They Zoom all the time, a lot of X's and O's talks, and he's really clicked with him and thinks he can learn under him, and then likes the program trajectory under Coach Napier. And then he's going to get back down to South Carolina in October when Florida is on their campus. So the relationship with Coach Logans, he loves what Coach Beamer's doing with the program. Again, that's another one he sees on the rise. These are the 2 programs that I think out of the 5 are in fantastic position going into the fall for Ryan Montgomery.
Steve, 5-star Kamarion Franklin, he's got a decision coming up on Saturday as well. Last time we talked to you was on Monday. It seemed like Auburn was kind of in the driver's seat there. Has anything changed as Kamarion Franklin comes to a decision?
Well, I do still think that Auburn, if you're asking me where I think he'll end up, I think that Auburn is the place that he would end up at right now, between the relationship with Jeremy Garrett, Hugh Freeze, and all their ties in the state of Mississippi, and then the program trajectory and the amount of times he's been on campus. Auburn's in really good position, but it would not surprise me if he ended up at Miami. It would not surprise me if he ended up with Ole Miss. You know, those are 2 programs that continue to go hard at him. He's been on Miami's campus several times, just loves the atmosphere, the environment around there, and certainly likes Jason Taylor, Coach Cristobal. And then with Ole Miss, they've been on him as long as anybody. And Coop, as you know, they're putting together one of the best defensive line classes in the country. They have Jeffrey Rush in the fold. They have Cameron Beavers in the fold from in-state. And Kamarion Franklin, there's some people around Oxford that think he'll ultimately end up at Ole Miss as well. So although I still would tell you that I like where Auburn stands, let's not sleep on Miami, which we said earlier in the week. But let's also not sleep on Ole Miss here as they push for a top 25 recruiting class for a second cycle in a row.
Whew, all right. We got a lot of 5-star decisions to be made in the next couple of days. Let's turn to the edge and Jordan Ross out of Birmingham, place you are pretty familiar with. He's also set to announce that his decision will come Monday. His finalists are Bama, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. Who has the leg up a few days out, Steve?
Well, I think that Tennessee's been the one to beat here for quite some time. You look at the 4 finalists that he put out there. I think Florida, they got a terrific class right now. They've hit on some other targets at the position. I think that those 2 parties have gone their separate ways at this point. I think that although he really enjoyed Texas, I think that I still like Tennessee over Texas there, and then Alabama. I just think that when you look at this recruitment and you look at the program that has prioritized him the most, the program that has built the best relationship with him. And I think that's Tennessee. He loves where this program's going under Coach Heupel and company, Coach Garner. And then he loves the fan base. When you talk to him about Tennessee, he always points to the support that the fans give, the support that he sees from them on social media and stuff too. So I think that Tennessee is the nation's number 11 recruiting class right now. They're in line for some good news here from Jordan Ross.
Steve, Kamarion Franklin, not the only big prospect making a decision here on Saturday. Blake Ivy as well, one of the nation's top tackles, will make a decision this weekend. Your crystal ball has been in on Texas A&M for a while. What's the latest intel with him?
Yeah, and I think that Texas A&M's got a great shot to land him, but a program that we should maybe also talk about here going into his decision is LSU. And LSU actually got the last visit from him, got him on campus that last weekend in July, and we know that Coach Brad Davis does an excellent job with top targets. So Texas A&M, they're putting together one of the best offensive line classes in the SEC. I've long thought that they were well positioned for Blake Ivy and could certainly see him ending up an Aggie. But LSU in this one here at the end, Texas taking their swing as well.
Okay, you mentioned Ole Miss making a late push for Kamarion Franklin. The gist of that was nothing would surprise you, but they're also pushing for a few other quarterback prospects. You've got the Elite 11 finalist in Trevor Jackson and former Arkansas cornerback commit Noreel White. So both sides of the ball taken care of here. Where do the Rebels sit with those two top targets?
Yeah, Noreel can be a dynamic playmaker after the catch at wideout too, Emily. And these are two guys that I think Ole Miss is trending for when you talk to sources with knowledge of the recruitment. Trevor Jackson was offered by Ole Miss in early July, then made it to campus a couple weeks later. And certainly Coach Kiffin's offense and his development track record of the quarterback position has put them in good shape. You know, UCLA, Maryland, Pitt, some of the other contenders for Trevor Jackson, and then Noreel White. He's got a decision date for August 25th. You got Ole Miss, you got Mississippi State battling here. I know there's some people that think he'll end up at Ole Miss, but Mississippi State, they pulled out some big recruiting wins here this cycle as well. So let's not sleep on that first-year staff.
Steve, we talked about in the beginning of the show, Julian Lewis in the 2026 Top 100 coming out yesterday. Julian Lewis is going to be one of the most desired names in the country. We have already seen that. In terms of where it stacks up for him right now, what does his recruitment look like?
Well, development's the number one thing he's looking for when he makes his college decision. And so the first program I look at right now is USC. He's been out there 3 times, built a great rapport with Lincoln Riley. And the Trojans, they're not pushing for anybody in the recruiting class in 2025 right now either. I think that they're all in on Julian Lewis here as they look at an underclassman quarterback right now. And I think that also means something to him. But obviously what Caleb Williams has been able to do most recently, and then some of the great quarterbacks he's had in the past, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, Julian Lewis sees that track record of development at USC and has loved his time out there on campus. Same goes for Alabama, Nick Saban, and all the quarterbacks that Alabama has in the NFL right now. Been there several times, looking to get back for their game against Texas, and also looking to get back for their game against Tennessee. So there's already a couple Alabama games on the radar for him this fall. And then, of course, Georgia, 2-time defending national champs, what they've been able to do in the NFL draft. That's a program that he's got a keen eye on as well. Florida State's in the mix, a couple others for Julian Lewis, but those are the major contenders right now.
Another name out of that 2026 class you need to be familiar with is the number 2 quarterback as of right now. Again, these are just freshmen. It's Jared Curtis. He is out of Nashville, also has quite a few offers. You got Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, all the biggies. But what programs are high on his list at this point, Steve?
Some of the same schools that are in on Julian Lewis are right there in it for Jared Curtis. You know, Alabama's a place he's been several times. He's really clicked with offensive coordinator Tommy Rees over there. They'll get back to a game in Tuscaloosa this fall. Georgia's another place that he's been very impressed with. Coach Mike Bobo and Coach Montgomery Van Gorder. He's really clicked with those guys and is very excited about Georgia. Florida State and Coach Tony Tokars, he had a great visit to Florida State this offseason. And then South Carolina, they have another 2026 quarterback committed right now, but Jared Curtis is very high on the Gamecocks. Told me Ohio State's his dream school, so that's a school to keep an eye on moving forward. And then Tennessee, Notre Dame, a couple other programs that he's very excited about. He's been to Tennessee. Kenny Minchie, he trains with the Notre Dame freshman quarterback. And so those are reasons why he likes the Irish. So a lot of schools on the list for Jared Curtis right now. Those are some of the ones that I think are in the best early position.
Steve, keeping track of 2024, 2025, and 26. We do appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show today. You can read more of his work on 247sports.com. He has a piece up right now about some blue chip buzz. Go and check it out. And as always, I tell you this every show, you're going to want to do it. For more exclusive information, become a VIP member today.